Hello, welcome back to the channel, and today we'll be doing the North Carolina Tarheels video. The way we start these always, as you guys know by now, hopefully, if you are a recurring viewer, is we start with recruiting. They had the 30th class in the country last year, 20 commits. They had, 6 4-stars and 14 3-stars. In the ACC, they were the 4th class behind the top big dogs in recruiting, especially Miami, Clemson, and Florida State. Now looking at that class specifically, Mack Brown doing his thing, recruiting a lot of good skill guys. Chris Culver, he's a receiver out of North Carolina, 4-star, 6'3", 174. They then brought in Tad Hudson, a quarterback, 6'3", 220. He's a 4-star quarterback, hopefully the next Drake Maye for them. Christian Hamilton is another 4-star receiver. You can really kind of see where they're recruiting here. And then after that, they've got a bunch of defensive linemen. The last 4-star being Tyler Thompson. And they got Joel Starlings, Jayborn Harvey, and Aiden Duncanson, all defensive linemen. Duncanson's actually a safety, and those guys are going to help, hopefully, get a Band-Aid on that really bad defense that's led by Gene Chizik. Obviously, an ex-national championship winning coach over in Auburn finds himself as the coordinator for one of the worst defenses in the Power 5, unfortunately. So a little bit of a fall from grace there, but as a name's a name. You got him with Mack Brown, an absolute loaded in terms of experience and wealth of knowledge in the coaching departments. Now, for their transfer portal, they brought in another receiver, Devontae Walker from Kent State. Kent State, man, I think lost literally 20 guys in the portal, and they were all starters. So that's something we'll talk about going forward in another video. But Tony Grimes, a corner, left for Texas A&M. They replaced him with East Tennessee's Elijah Huzzie, a cornerback as well. They lost a defensive lineman, Keyshawn Silver, to Kentucky, but then they brought in some more defensive help with Armani Chapman from Virginia Tech. They brought in a pair of Yellow Jackets from Georgia Tech, Nate McCullum, a receiver, and Derek Allen, a safety. They then brought in a guard from in-state Coastal Carolina, brought him back in from Myrtle Beach over to Chapel Hill, Willie Lampkin. And then after that, just some depth guys in and out. Kind of not meant too many game changers, but as we mentioned on Monday, they lost their kicker, Jonathan Kim, to Michigan State. Now, the receivers will be instantly coming in. Josh Downs, a big name of a guy they lost, really good receiver, is going to be doing great things for the Colts, and the future MVP, Anthony Richardson. But yeah, Nate McCullum and Devontae Walker look to replace his production. They bring in 2 guys for 1. Willie Lampkin's a plug-and-play at right guard. Elijah Huzzie will be starting for the departing corner that left for Texas A&M. And Derek Allen will be another safety on that defense. And as we said, that defense needs a lot of work because when it comes to this team, there's 2 questions. Can Drake Maye carry the entire team? And number 2, how will that defense hold up? When you think of Mack Brown's career renaissance almost over at the North Carolina Tarheels, you think of a quarterback-centric offense where you've got Drake Maye and obviously Sam Howell before him. When you think of the duo of Michael Carter and Javonte Williams now playing on Sundays. So that is something they've kind of looking to hopefully get with Elijah Green and British Brooks. They're 2 running backs at the moment. But again, Drake Maye, redshirt sophomore. He's able to go to the draft this year. He'll likely be going number 2, well, I would think, behind Caleb Williams in the NFL draft this year in Detroit, where I'll be in attendance, hopefully. If you can get that defense to get him a few stops, that'll be helpful because Drake Maye's Heisman campaign, he'll be doing as much as he can on offense to keep his team in the game. So if you can get a few stops and he can continue doing his magic, this team could go on a hot run. Kind of like Texas Tech yesterday. They've got a pretty tough out-of-conference schedule. They start with a neutral site game against South Carolina. One of the bigger hinge games, probably the best game, I would say, most competitive too, highest level of competitiveness, I would say, in week 1. I got him winning that game. I know my cousin, shout out Taft, is going to be annoyed with that one, but I do think that could be a game where they win. It'll be a really good one. Beamer will be doing his thing. South Carolina's a 2.5-point underdog, and everyone's going to be like, oh, SEC versus ACC, and you're giving the SEC team points. There's a reason for that, and that's why you got to go with the Tar Heels. Week 2, they host Appalachian State after the crazy shootout that was last season. They'll take care of business there. Then in one of the cooler out-of-conference games, they host Minnesota. Now, I think this game will be a pretty tough game for the Tar Heels, but I think they'll get the job done. I'm going to guess they're going to be like a 4 to 6 point favorite, and I think they get the job done no problem. And they're 3-0 going to Pitt. Pitt's always a tough place to play, but when you've got a potentially the second best or the best player in college football, I'm going to lean with you on that one. Then they will be 4-0 going into their bye week to end September, and they start off October at home against Syracuse, which would be a good tune-up. They'll win that game. And then they go against Miami. And this is the game that gets really interesting. Miami has a great secondary, obviously a great counter for UNC's strengths with their passing game in Drake Maye. It'll be a really cool game, but I do have the Tar Heels edging this one out. So at this point, you're already staring down bowl eligibility. You'll be 6-0. Drake Maye will be putting up crazy stats. You'll be probably overranked, I'm going to guess. Probably, touching top 15-ish. And then they will play Virginia at home. Easy win there. At Georgia Tech, another easy one. The good news of not only strengthening yourselves early with some tough tests in the out-of-conference, you are able to play the Campbell Fighting Camels before you have to play Duke at home. Obviously a big rivalry game on the hardwood, but it's been pretty good games on the grass. That means I have North Carolina being 10-0 going in their last 2 games. The problem for them is probably their 2 toughest games of the season in the last 2 weeks, at Clemson and at NC State. And I think they're going to lose to Clemson, so that has them at 10-1. And then they're going to play at NC State. Can you get up for that game? Obviously, it's a pretty big rivalry. It's a way bigger rivalry in football. Obviously, both in-state rivals for North Carolina, but just looking at it from this perspective, it's much more of a football rivalry, NC State, North Carolina, than it is in basketball. But I think they win that game, they being the Tar Heels. And they're 11-1. They will play Clemson again in the championship game and lose. They'll lose twice to Clemson. They all lost to Clemson last year in the championship game, and they'll be 11-2 with 2 losses to the same team, which is a pretty rare thing to do. That means they'll get a big New Year's Six bowl, probably against like a Big 12 team, maybe a Texas or Oklahoma playing North Carolina. It's going to stink because I imagine Drake will not play in that game, nor do I want him to for his own personal sake. Obviously, my opinion on him playing really doesn't matter, but hopefully for his sake, he saves himself for the NFL and we can see him do some insane things for many years to come on Sundays. Now, 11-2, what does that mean going forward for them? That means they should get a lot of transfer guys coming in. If I'm a quarterback that's looking at transfer, I know I talk about Malik Murphy all the time, I would be like, look, I want to get in that system. If you're a gunslinger, it's like, look, let me get in that system. Sam Howell, they turned him into an NFL starter. He's probably going to start for the Commanders this year. Drake Maye is going to make millions on his first contract being a top 3 to 5 pick, right? Probably the second quarterback off the board. So it'll be a huge transfer portal destination, and any big quarterback that doesn't win their job, there's a lot of guys around there. If you're a Brock Vandegrift, if you're a Devin Brown, if you are a Tyler Buckner, a Jaden Milroe, a Ty Simpson, whoever loses that job in Bama, any of these guys I think should all transfer to UNC and think about it for sure and get over there and get in that QB-centric system. Hopefully get yourselves paid at the next level. But I think it's going to be a good spot going forward. It's also interesting to see how much longer we see the legend Mack Brown continue to coach. It's great to see him moving on from Texas and bouncing up and doing a great thing over at UNC, revitalizing them. But yeah, that's kind of all I got for now. Let me know down below if you think Drake Maye can win a Heisman, what you really expect out of the Tar Heels, if anything at all. And please like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.